and Matt said it earlier. This game is hilariously hunter lopsided and has been for a while.
But monsters are OP, and people are still gonna say
No,
monsters
see,
are
like
OP.
here's the thing. Here's the thing. People say Kraken is OP, but they only say Kraken is OP relative to other monsters. Not that monsters are too strong or not strong enough, for the most part. I think is the,
Well, I
is
think
generally
that's-
what people try to say.
Yeah, I think that's what you're supposed to think when they do say OP, but I actually think they mean OP in a sense to where, like, in every form of the word OP. Because I don't.
Yeah, I'm
I
sure
think,
there are people who do.
But yeah, he's especially right now because tier 4 is just so good against all the monsters except for, well, tier 4 is really good against Kraken as well, but the biggest issues, he doesn't stuff in combat, just he shines in combat. He is by far the best monster in combat, but he's like, his mobility, he has a special mobility thing, and that's that he can glide or fly or whatever, and him being able to do that inside of a dome, if you want to target somebody, you can target him. You're probably going to take a lot of damage, and he's kind of slow if you're trying to get away or get to them or something, but I mean, you can move around and you're taking damage from multiple people unless you want to stay behind a piece of cover. But if you do that, he is a lot less powerful. But when he's the most powerful is also when he's taking the most damage. But like, he can, if there's somebody he wants to target, as long as there's a counter to one thing or another in hunter kits, he can deal with it and then target that hunter and get his abilities to hit that hunter. But he'll take a lot of damage for it. Or at least that's what is supposed to happen, and that is what happens. So like, for example, the Sunny Shield Drone, that thing's a monster against all the monsters except for maybe Wraith, but even for Wraith it's still pretty powerful because Wraith has to be pretty much on top of it to take it out or use an ability, whereas Kraken, he can just be up in the air and it's 3 snowballs to take it out at stage 2, and I think stage 1, and 2 snowballs when he's stage 3 to take it out, and you don't need to use any of the abilities. And since he can see like the entire battlefield inside of a dome, he can get over to it and take it out with the auto attacks, and then use abilities on hunters to burst them down. And if Sunny wants to throw somebody out in front, well, I mean, that's pretty powerful. But again, you don't have, it's hard to use geometry to protect against Kraken's burst.
Ability.
Yeah, because there's no shield drone that's down because that person got thrown forward. So you could turn on them and take them out, or deal a lot of damage and have the ability to a really good chance to take them out.
A lot of the times I would just get in range to do mortars. I didn't want to really get too coasty when I was getting thrown.
Yeah, and if you were anyone except for Torvald, I would have turned on you immediately, and you would have done a lot less damage with that on the evolve thing. And I would have turned on you immediately because I knew Sunny boosted you forward. But I didn't want to get on you because I didn't feel like it was worth the damage that I was probably going to take. And it would take a little while to take you down as well. And I think you were going to back up. And you did.
Yep, I was. I just wanted to get in there, do some damage, and then get out.
Right, because you didn't
Krakens
have
at stage
support.
2 are dangerous.
Yeah. And I went over to
I didn't have
the
support, so
middle of the cave and got some food because you backed up. And then I went
I had
around to
to.
the outside and looked to see if I wanted to leave from the other side of the cave. I saw you jumped out and
Yep.
down there, and so I went over and turned on the
yeah,
medic and
that
the
was
support.
the worst part. I wish I should have just stayed out and let you decide. 'Cause that's what I was gonna do. I was just gonna stay outside and let you decide which way you're gonna go, and then continue the chase.
I didn't. Well, I felt like I could have taken them out faster, a decent amount faster than I ended up doing, but
Yeah. Killed Shinya right as he dropped, so that helped a lot.
Yeah, I don't know if I really took anyone down. It was
Killed
just-
Shinya right as he
Yeah.
dropped.
Well, yeah, I killed
like
Shinya.
immediately.
Because
like he
Shinya's
just died.
bad.
It's like you could do anything.
Yeah, he's like, I'm
Someone-
coming, guys. I'm coming. Get lightning strike. Yeah, it's pretty funny. He. I don't know if I'll be able to actually get him to. Yeah. You can only mitigate so much when you have Sunny Jetpack Beam against competent Kraken. Just as long as he's saving his abilities for when he knows he can hit them. And he's using like snowballs. And then when he goes over to who's being beamed, you know,
What were you
burst them
thinking
down
when
around.
when you were crouching around that rock right at the last fight?
I wanted to see if you're gonna extend. And then if you were, I was gonna vortex you up in the air.
And then juggle me?
I would have left. Because I saw everyone, I saw most of you guys were coming up behind you. So I was gonna vortex you and then go out to the other side of the beach. I can't really, I mean, if it was against other supports, I would have tried.
Well,
I would have
wasn't the
tried
support.
getting behind you.
Oh, never mind. That was a third.
Or assault, if you're a different assault, I mean, I would have jumped behind you and tried to vortex you behind the thing or whatever, try to get you further back, and then force you to pop your shield, and then kept running, and then maybe try to ambush you like mid-map when the shield drone isn't in range.
Are we playing or what's going on?
Well, I was talking, and then I'm gonna leave if there aren't any more questions or things to discuss.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Just was curious how we're just
Out of any other issues, like as an assault, am I choosing like halfway intelligent like choices?
Yep.
I think Hippie playing with you a lot. The thing that I see you do a lot is you try and chase the monster around the ring. Not gonna work. Don't do it. You'll never keep up with the monster. Bother.
Well,
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
The idea is is for the hunters to create like crossfire kill zones. Essentially.
Yeah, I mean, you should be cutting, but within reason, and it's very comp, map, monster specific.
I was more referring to dome fights.
Oh,
Well,
and
what I
dome
noticed-
fights.
What I noticed is Aurora, his movement pattern is a lot more erratic than Drath's. Drath is a
Yes.
very straightforward. He's gonna go around and that way. Aurora's, you were like watching a ping pong.
Yeah.
No,
that's-
it really was.
One of the things
and it's
that-
hard to keep up with because you
I
don't know where to cut. I couldn't
Yeah.
cut because you were going to go different directions. See, with Drath, I think Drath is doing too much of a cookie cutter. Like, he's just going straight there. So if he's going straight there, we can cut and get ahead of him or whatnot. With you, we weren't able to cut and get ahead of you because we didn't actually know where you wanted to go at that point. I think Drath is just following a formula that you guys have told him, but he's just following it too much to the T. I think
A lot of his pathing is stuff he's come up with on his own, actually, but yes, it's something that I've been trying to get Draft to do for a while, but it's very hard to articulate that into something
Cool.
that's useful.
yeah, he just needs to be a little bit more spontaneous in his pathing, I guess. Just
The
I don't know.
problem is that's easier said than done a lot, though, and I think Matt can iterate on this a bit, is that there is a very clear optimized path on how to get your evolves quickly on most maps, and when you start to deviate from that, you're penalizing yourself a lot.
Yeah, but sometimes you also have to if you know they're fast enough, and if they
Yeah.
have a certain comp. If they have like Sunny Parnell, you have to play differently. Parnell's gonna do less damage inside the dome, especially against Kraken with all of his limbs and everything, and his shotgun doing limb damage. But
That's
like
why I use the rocket launcher.
but if you use the rocket launcher, then you're getting
more misses than
That's-
anything.
that's less consistent, honestly. I mean, it does, I think, more damage overall, unless you're like right up against him, but the point is you're not going to do as much damage in the domes with Parnell against Kraken, and because of that, you have more fight power, but if you try to evolve near him, you're going to get shredded, and I think that's part of the reason why I think he's in the game. I think there is a balance, and I think it's good enough, where I think you can use Parnell, but like, you really have to coordinate like all kinds of things together and make sure your positioning is good depending on what comp you're running and, you know, the map that you're playing on. But just as soon as you get stage 2 and you get like almost full armor with Kraken against Parnell, you can, or like, let's just say that comp, but with Parnell, you should be able to do a really decent job of taking out or getting some serious damage in a dome on that comp.
And I noticed you focused me a lot.
Yeah, poking around at you a lot, 'cause you have Val and Sunny, and that's, if you're way out in front, like next to me and near me, and you're out of shields, then I can take you out, and now they're dealing with a support who just has the slow grenade launcher thing, Val, which doesn't really work with the support's weapon, and then Shin, who is actually kind of just dead. So
yeah, Shin was dead kind of like a lot.
Yeah. I mean, when you're playing, you're generally playing around the support for the most part, and with Sunny, she has some really good strengths, and they work really well against other monsters. But if you know how to play around her kit as Kraken, you can force some things where hunters feel like they're not out of position when they actually are. Because even with Hank, you can use an orbital, like on top of cover or something, and have the orbital cover a hunter. Like, a hunter can jump into the orbital or be in the orbital, and then if the hunter gets hit, he doesn't take damage and goes flying in some direction that's not known. And if the monster gets hit by the orbital, he's in the same place and he's taking damage. So he's like, you know exactly where the monster is, and he's taking damage. But like with Sunny, and as soon as he gets in range, he can get the shield on the target. But with Sunny, like, it takes 2 people to use the defensive capability of Sunny's beam, and that's linking it and having the person who's linked use the beam. And even if they use it, it's not a shield. You can just like chase towards them, or like if they're, yeah, you can chase towards them or not chase towards them or whatever. But once the beam like kind of runs out, it's,
well, it's a two-person job with the Sunny drone, shield drone, because you have to know where the fuck the Sunny drone is and make sure that you can still do damage to the monster while still being shielded, or do whatever your job is while still being shielded.
But yeah, her kit is like 2-part stuff, whereas Hank's is all 1 part. It's all on. It's just the support. He puts the shield on, and it goes immediately. He drops the orbital, and it goes immediately just from him. Doesn't require a command on any other hunter's part. So Sunny's kit is slower for her defensive capabilities. I don't know. I feel like, I don't know, I feel like decision-making stuff, like, if you're playing against Torvald, you can dodge around. You're supposed to get hit by mortars, but as soon as you come down, I mean, and especially like with Val, it's very, that comp is very dependent on your hunters dealing out enough damage, especially early on, to where they can dodge some abilities later on, so that you can keep damage up, and then continue from there, because she can only heal so much. But with Sunny not being able to do much until she's properly situated, yeah. And then Torvald, who does a decent job with defending hunters, but that's only if they're like right next to him.
Alright, well, I'm fed.
And like Val, who, you know, it's definitely up to the Val is a lot like Laz, and that it's up to the rest of the hunters to make Val or Laz work, and Val's just, you know, in between Laz and Kyra. It's less so dependent on hunters for doing damage and mitigating damage, but you know, she has more utility than Laz. Just playing around the comp and the map, and there are evolve locations that are not in the caves that you can use that work pretty well, because I don't see monsters using them very often, so I don't think trappers are very aware of where they set up their dome to, because you can't block off the roundabout. Or you can, but I think it would require Sunny or movement speed and a very good knowledge of where that evolve location is in order for that to happen. You evolve, like, you know the rock column that's on the south beach? It's next to the two buildings in the back where I went originally stage 1 to go eat. And that's where you guys saw me over there. There's that big rock column. You can evolve.
Yeah, they're side by side.
Well, there's one rock column. You mean the two buildings?
Oh, sorry. I was just talking about there's two like little pillar rocks that are situated.
Oh, there's
near
those
that rock
two.
column.
Yeah, it's before those. There's the big rock column that's in between like those and the building that's more towards the side of the map, not the middle. If you evolve on the beach side or the outside of that rock column, the Hank has to have a wide sight in order to get an orbital from like mid-map, so he has to be coming around either side or be like right up next to you. And if you're moving fast enough, I don't really think you can do that. With Sunny, Sunny would throw the Hank forward, and that means that the Hank is now like out of position. And I think with stage 1, there's a decent chance that you can, at least with Val, that you can get him, either take him out or get him low enough to where if he comes out of cloak, then you can take him down and then go after Trapper, or well, I don't know. But I mean, he would have to, or actually, Sunny can't push Hank forward. Oh my god. But I mean, like, you know, you'd have to, the support has to be really far forward in order for him to get an orbital in that location. And the assault is kind of the same thing, but the assault tends to be slower, because usually the perks that are picked for assault are not, they don't speed him up. And he's generally following right behind the monster, so he's like kind of slow. I mean, he cuts sometimes. He doesn't necessarily need to be on the outskirts of the map, but it does depend on, like, if he thinks the evolve is going to happen, then he has to kind of say, hey, I'm close enough to get tons of damage if you evolve, and then if not, then I'm going to go back towards the middle and cut around the outside, in the middle. But that evolve location is very viable. You've got like a rock formation that's up next to that vertical rock column that you can evolve on. And then the other beach side, you can evolve over there as well, but that one is a lot more risky because there's no loop. Yeah, there's no loop like at all in that area, so that one's a lot harder to do. You can evolve over there if they like don't have Hank and they missed a dome, something like that, and you can like push the Parnell or be far enough away from Parnell. But I don't know, there's lots of things that you can try to do or mess with depending on the comp and what your build is, and I don't know. I've always felt like there's a definitive way to do pretty much everything, but of course nobody has figured that out. But I mean, like, if you run a trillion games in a simulation, have an AI figure out on both sides, you know, what's the best course of action, I think you'd find, like, some very...
But Matt is actually a machine. I get it.
No, I'm not. Well, I'm like a machine, but I'm not. I'm still trying to fit. But what I'm saying is, like, you would definitely see routes that are fastest and traversals that are used incredibly effectively and beeline straight to evolve locations, depending on like the situation. But I think you would also see like some attempts at like dodging around so that the hunters have to take a less than favorable path to where you're going. And you know, if the AI like has figured everything out, then they know like the best pathing from you know, this place to the other place or whatever. But on a lot of maps there isn't a clear one like evolve location like that feels like there is on Distillery in the Caves. So they can't necessarily be on one side or the middle. So they can't actually be fast enough to get to, you know, one of them, and they're susceptible to little movement tricks that the monster can force on them. I don't know. I'm trying to explain. I think you guys understand. It's just I don't think it's set up to the point where you can beeline it from one point to another point and expect the same results on every composition that you're playing against. So gonna have to not mix it up necessarily, but kind of mess with how you play out the game and have like different plans and strategies, and that often messes with your pathing against other or different comps. So I don't know. I found that I didn't really care as much about taking damage as long as it's not Sunny Parnell. But I mean, if I'm playing at Sunny Parnell, I do a much better job of fighting when I'm fighting the group of 4 inside of a dome. So that's the trade-off. But against all the other assaults, I don't mind quite as much as Sunny chucks like Torvald forward. I was actually surprised I was dealt that much damage. I didn't smell anyone, so I mean they must have been like right out the smell range and then boosted in like immediately. So, I mean, that was good. But the drawback is the assault is now really out of position, and you can turn on him, or you're now playing with the caves area, which is really good for you, as long as they're not inside and set up in the caves before you come in. So you have like an advantage in fighting inside there. And there's food. Some food. There should be some food. So I think there's definitely some stuff that you can improve upon as far as strategy is concerned against compositions. Does that make sense? Do you understand, Draft?
Yeah, I suppose, but
I know, and I've always said that hunters should be winning, like, and I in the simulations I feel like they would be winning 99% of their games, but you do have to try to do things better, try to capitalize on one thing or another. And definitely right now in the current state of the games, there are no teams that are playing near perfection. They're still learning tier 4 stuff. If they pull out anything that's tier 4, you know they don't have that much time messing with that tier 4 hunter, and so there's some things that they might feel like one thing is good, and so they'll do that, and then if you can pick up on that, then you can do something else. So like Sunny, they feel like boosting someone in, using it like a cloak, where you stay like out of smell range and then boosting them in. But now the monster knows that that person was boosted forward, and they've DTR when we scrimmed, they did that like all the time. They would like boost Brandon in, and he'd be like right up on me. So they had Abe with the tracking dart, and they knew exactly what my distance was. I evolved, they chucked him in from outside of small range. He went inside, or on my evolve, and got headshot damage with Abe's shotgun, which is scary. It's like a mini Parnell shotgun. But as soon as I came out of my evolve, he got deleted. And from there, I now went and got armor, and they were chasing me, and now their shield drone isn't up. If they want to try to get, in order for the 3-1 split to work, you need to have support there with the medic and assault. So that means the trapper is alone, and if the trapper is alone, the support can have the shield drone with the trapper. But the problem is with Kraken, as you're coming in, you can hit him with one ability. It's not shielded, or I think it might be shielded. But you can hit him with one ability like Vortex and push him away, just as long as you keep yourself in between the 3 and the 1. And you push him away, and then you go deal with the shield drone, and then you get on him. And you'll deal a lot of damage consistently before the Sunny makes it up to him and jetpacks him. And now the jetpack keeps him up in the air, and you can move around with where the trapper is, and then you take the trapper out, and then you leave.
But, I mean, even in the games you guys won against me, you guys weren't running Sunny. And aside from Shinya going in that cave attacking me while he was being eaten by Trapjaws, there wasn't really anyone I felt that was out of position.
Yeah, and it might... There's and then there's lots of small things leading up to...
Yeah.
Like, when you're trying to damage mitigate, you know, you do... You try to mitigate damage as much as you can, try to not get domed in locations where it's good to be domed, so you know you're moving around through... If you know you're up against a high damage comp, you want to take domes in locations that, you know, you have a roundabout or ways to mitigate, and move accordingly to those locations. And if they dome you, then you can mitigate damage, and they're out of their dome, and that's one less opportunity they have to deal a lot of damage to you. And now you're getting further in the game, and they haven't dealt enough damage to you to counteract the fact that their defense is so low later in the game.
The problem I found with that, though, is, like, whenever I'm trying to set up a... Like, if I'm trying to dome dodge in a place that I wouldn't mind being domed, they typically are able to read that for me, and they don't dome at all. They just continue chipping at my damage while I'm playing cat and mouse with the trapper. and then only until that my armor goes all the way down, or they do like at least half of it, will they even attempt it. And then that in that position, then I'm just worse off.
So you need to play like you're always playing against hunters that know what they're doing. So you can go straight towards the trapper, because if he's like on distillery, if he's on top of the buildings and he domes like right on where he's moving across on the buildings, you can go inside the buildings and vortex people away. And if they get on top of you, then you can go around or back out and then up on top of the building and then vortex again, and like set up mines or whatever. And when the dome is about to go down, you know, set up to where, you know, your head is not showing to them, and leave and turn around quickly, spam abilities, and go to somewhere else. I mean, assuming perfect play, with monsters right now, I don't think any of the monsters would ever win, but I just, you know, there's stuff you can do. It just seems like I've never seen you mitigate damage really well in a dome, like as well as you could be. You're running around in places that blocks line of sight, but then I don't see vortexes come out pushing people away as often as I'd like. And then when you're around areas where I'm not going to dome, it doesn't look like you're moving towards, or you're moving towards those locations that I'm not going to dome. And that might be because you don't know that it's a bad dome location, but I do. I'm not sure. But like, if you know you're going to take damage doing cat and mouse trying to bait the dome out, then... And if you don't know that's a bad location, then that's definitely something you can improve upon. You can learn locations that you know you can't really dome. You could take damage as long as you have 3/4 or more armor. If you dome in a bad location, I think it ends up being worth it if you lose like a bar of health or 2 bars of health or whatever.
Yeah. The majority of those games I was focusing on mobility perks because I was not in positions where I had enough armor because I kept getting chipped down.
Yeah, and then I find that DI is still very important. I'll take less damage, but I can now capitalize on people who are out of position a lot easier because burst from abilities is so important. The extra 10% closer to incapping a hunter is... it's so big, even now. So I don't know. I would say, I mean, you can run DR, and I think DR is better depending on like what comp you're going against, and if we're not calling out, if we're not doing the picks, then that's something that we should be doing more often.
I think DR was one of my worst games though. I only attempted that once today.
That was where you got me down, right?
It was on weather control.
Well, weather control sucks.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, I was able to get yeah, with how fast you can go up and down, and me going Griffin with movement speed, as long as I know what path I'm supposed to take, I can cut off roundabout areas like I did on that evolve. And then as long as the hunter team is confident in dealing damage, then it ends up just hurting a lot. In that area that you were sitting at and vortexing people out, that was good. But I mean, just the map. I mean, I think a lot of trappers would end up pushing forward pretty far and trying to dome you when you're around like the landing pad and in the back by that little Reaver cave. Um, but I'm not gonna do that because it's not worth it. There's like, there are bad dome locations, you can capitalize on that. If there's people out of position, usually you can capitalize on it, but you kind of have to. That's kind of why I take DI. That's part of the reason. The other reason is that I can deal a lot more damage because it's 10% spread out across the hunters.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know.
I still think DI is preferable if I can get armor. I was just having lots of trouble getting any armor.
Yeah.
And that goes with what Hippie said and what some people have told me before. It's like I'm too predictable, and I don't know what to do about that really. I mean, I try and go for the closest spot that has line of sight break, and then go for the next closest spot that has a line of sight break from there. And people still say I'm predictable.
Yeah, I've had people complain about that to me as well, like my hunter team, and the fact of the matter is they don't get it. I think they see okay, so a monster they played against ended up sneaking in an area, and he moved out around, and since they're not necessarily used to that sneaking route, he got lucky and got out and got a stage up evolve, but on like all the other games he got destroyed. So they're now using that game as an example for me to try to get better at doing that, to throw them for a loop, even though it's not quite as good consistently as what I do. And when I try to do that, it loses me games. It's just, being predictable is just something that hunters are getting used to monsters and their pathing, so it's just something that they do. And as soon as you start sneaking, you're now, if you don't have full armor, you're playing very risky. If you do have full armor, it's something that I think you should probably try. I do it sometimes, but when I have full armor, it's generally because I'm stage 2 or stage 3, and when I'm full armor stage 2, I feel like there's some positioning things that I can work around and try to get hunters in a position where I can now jump on them and fight them. So I'm not necessarily looking for a sneak attempt. I'm looking for something, some way to jump on their positioning. But I mean, I would try to use sneaking if I'm really low and I feel like that's the best chance for me to come back in a game. I just feel like hunters saying you're too predictable isn't necessarily a valid point. It's just other things that I think you should try getting better at. Like
when I say predictable for him, though, I more specifically mean like his general evasion movements and his general dome movements. Like, he seems more fluid in motion as opposed to where you're a bit more erratic. Like, for example, if you compare him to, say, like the ridiculous Kraken bot, everybody knows how ridiculous that thing in movement is. It's just all over the damn place. Like, yeah. A lot of people will do that. Draft doesn't really tend to.
But that bot doesn't give any fucks about where the assault is or where
the support obviously. Is. But, like, the general notion I'm getting at is just, like, the movements just aren't...
I mean, I'm gonna...
nearly erratic enough.
In all the games that I did today, the reason why I went the way I did in the domes is because I saw, okay, if there's one person and it's not the assault, I am going to go towards them. And if they're going to continue keeping the same grouping, I'm just going to continue avoiding the assault. And unless the assault starts changing direction, I'm going to keep doing the same direction. If that made any sense. Yeah. I'm just more saying, like, I'm specifically trying to avoid, like, the assault or Hank Hank does a ton of damage, but it's really hard to avoid the Assault and Hank.
I think some of the biggest things that are more nuancy that it seems like you're not doing as well as you could be are pathings that, like, you understand why you path differently than it seems like is best because of one thing or another. Like, doming locations or playing around where the hunters are, or... I mean, having DI is really big, because then a lot of things that you wouldn't be able to do necessarily now open up, but you're going to take more damage from that, but that's something that you just have to deal with. I think there are other perks that you can take, but they're kind of comp specific, I feel like. Yeah. And I don't feel like Goliath is not viable. Wraith is teetering on the edge, and I'm not sure about Wraith. Behemoth is absolutely not viable. And Kraken is definitely, you know, gives you the best options right now. And you said a while ago that Kraken was one of your worst monsters. And I think that's something that right now, in the current state of the game, you should probably try to work on.
Yeah.
So it's just something that, because like on Xbox, apparently Corey was saying that Goliath is the best just because it's so important to dodge domes, and right now it seems like hunters are still really stupid. Their damage is incredibly high, but they're pretty dumb. They don't understand the game as well as they should.
It was a lot easier to dodge domes with Goliath than it was Kraken.
Right, and that's why Goliath is kind of the pick, because it's make it to stage 3 with the least amount of damage taken possible, and then win from there.
Whereas on PC, like, domes are virtually guaranteed quite often.
Right, and then on PC, people understand good dome locations, bad dome locations. They actually can hold the dome if there's an opportunity, but it feels like it's just too risky. And kind of just wait. So it's just like a different... I don't know. I think you can... Yeah. I would just say go Kraken. I mean, you could try Wraith. But Wraith is just...
No, I really needed to get off of stage 2 to see how the Wraith would have done. I went 3 Warp Blast with cooldown, but I wasn't very good about making distance.
I don't think Goliath works right now, personally. I really don't. I think he's just got too many fucking things going against him right now with the way people are playing. I think Wraith is possible. I don't think people put enough time into Wraith to see exactly how far it goes. There just isn't that many Wraith players, in all, to be honest with you. I mean, Matt, you can interject on that one if you want, but that's been my observation on that. And I think your Wraith has always been pretty strong, so you just haven't been playing it much at all lately. Not at this level. So I really think you should explore that a bit more. But, I mean, you need to be able to play Kraken. Either way. Like, period.
Yeah, because I mean, you're not necessarily playing... For a long time, I've never really felt like I was playing to win. I was playing to try to get the best chance of winning as I possibly can. And Wraith, for a while, felt like it was just too risky to do that, especially like in competitive play. Because I felt like other monsters had a more consistent win ratio for me against those teams. But if 99% is like the biggest... Or if hunters are winning 99% of the time, then you do play like the most riskiest monster or something, or the hardest to control or whatever, and that in theory would be Wraith. I'm not sure where Wraith falls in the spectrum right now after the patch, but there's definitely stuff that you can try to work on and try to mess with the hunters and with like Kraken.
Like, if a game is a hunter biased game and you're slated to lose most likely anyways, taking a risky pick is less risky because you're probably going to lose anyway. Maybe you might catch somebody off guard and do some shit they're not expecting.
Well,
so there's that.
I don't know, but you should always be trying to play like you have the best chance of winning, always. Whatever your best chance of winning is. Even if you lose, whatever. But as long as you're playing what you think is best and how you think is best, and your hitting abilities, then that's all anyone can ask of you. So it's not necessarily about, it's always about playing the best you can.
Yeah, I mean,
and
I've
hunters
been telling you for a while that, like, I mean, I see shit. Like, especially when I joined those games where I was observer, I saw quite a few things you could work on. I mean, sometimes you get very frustrated and it's hard to articulate that stuff to you, which is understandable. But, like, I mean, there's stuff you can work on, but, I mean, honestly, a lot of those games were just no win. Like, you just weren't going to win. It's just how it goes sometimes. Well, oftentimes lately, I guess, with this game, but... I mean, it's part of it. I mean, you'll be better for it. The game obviously is not going to be forever, like, hunters are always going to win, it's never going to change. It's going to change, and you should always work to continue to improve that and fight on it, and because when the change does happen, you'll just be a better player for it. Frustrating, but it's kind of how it goes.
Yeah. And hunters can tell if you're doing all kinds of stuff that's like really good and, it seems like you're hitting all your abilities and your combos and they still feel like they're in the driver's seat against all the monsters, then they'll start feeling like Savvy, who came in here. He was playing Scrim against a lot of what he said top tier monsters or whatever, and he felt like they were all playing Krakens, and they felt like there was nothing the Kraken can do, and so the health adjustment was completely ridiculous because they're crushing Krakens. So the hunters will be able to tell if it seems like you're playing really well, but they feel like they're not going to lose. And I mean, I feel like hunters are OP, but I think they've always been OP, but, there's definitely things that I've seen or felt that I feel like I can bring up and try to talk to you about. So that's just what I'm trying to bring up.
Another problem I'm having right now is the game is becoming very frustrating.
Yeah.
Well, I think part of that is you pushing the bar so high. Like, you expect to be able to like, I don't know, to emulate things that aren't, like, practical. I don't know how to say it. It's not like you can't play as good as Matt or something like that. It's like you see a couple of really good games and it's like, well, okay, well, that's what I need to do. When the reality is over a consistent long term, that's not really how it goes. Like, and then you tend to tilt because you harp on yourself over long periods of time because you're not doing it, and that's just not. It's not a healthy attitude. It's gonna make you play worse. So, like, just find things that you want to work on, and focus on working on those things, and be happy when you do better at those things, and then the rest of it doesn't matter.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. It's pretty much that.
Like, okay, I lost, but that thing I was trying to do, yeah, I got it, no problem. So, on to the next one. And then eventually you'll realize it's like, oh, hey, I'm actually winning these games. Fuck.
Well, yes. Right now, the problem is I'm not seeing any improvement. I'm only seeing backwards.
I think you're taking too big of a picture. Just take one thing, like one individual mechanic or something that you want to improve on, or one individual part of a game you want to improve on, and just do that. and just pay attention to that and not worry about the rest of it.
Yeah.
Because then that removes winning or losing out of the equation of whether it matters whether it was a good game or not.
Right.
You
I mean,
lose
at this
100
point,
games in a row and it doesn't matter.
At this point, I don't even know what I could pick.
Well, I told you should be working on a Kraken, so I would
Well, I mean,
strongly
like, what
suggest.
specifically of Kraken?
What do you mean? Like what?
I don't know.
He's asking like what specific mechanic or like what specific tactic or something like that he wasn't doing that you saw that he could focus on.
Just
yeah, I mean-
mitigating damage, I guess.
Yeah, so playing around areas where, so first of all, so I'm going to use Distillery as an example. The path that you take, I think Corey takes at the beginning of the game to get food and eat. And I think that path is probably better than the one that I take.
It usually has a lot of food, and there's that pillar that usually I can try and box a trapper around.
That... Yeah, I mean, the issue is... You can box the trapper, but I think right now, for most teams, they're probably going to be throwing domes. Like, I know Shinya was doing it. He loves pushing way out to the side because he has move speed and Griffin, and then grabbing a dome, like, whenever he possibly can. And that was something I was talking to him about. But, like, he like, jumps way the fuck out there towards that rock column, and he chucks a dome, and, you know, you can trick someone like him with throwing a dome around that rock column and then mitigating damage and then going straight to the caves. And I can consistently get enough food to where I'm like 3 meats at most away from evolving, and by the time I get up to the caves, I go to the other side of the caves, inside the caves and evolve. Or if they're running Parnell Sunny, and they're like really close, then... Or like Parnell's really close, then I would try to stay around the caves a little bit and try to eat food in the caves and take more time that way. And then try to take a dome in the caves area with like full armor again, and then go out to somewhere else and try to evolve in a location where I force the Parnell to take a really long path from that second dome to the last one. So you're playing around like bad dome locations, and you're forcing them to possibly like dome on your evolve, or if you know they're not gonna dome until they evolve, or they're trying to push Parnell, like keep Sunny and Parnell towards the middles and then push them out, then you can kind of try to play around that as well. Forcing him to go like really far and then take the slowest path from one side of the map to the other. And that's going to be your best option of trying to mitigate Sunny Parnell headshot damage on evolves. It's worth the time, especially when like that's a big issue, stuff like that. And then like against Torvald, if you can evolve in cave areas, especially like I think almost all the cave areas that I know of have roundabouts in one form or another. And if you can go like from one side of the cave to the other and stay like away from the Torvald, that's really huge. Taking out his most of his mortars out of the equation is pretty big. if you're trying to mitigate on evolves. Fucking Corey, dude. So I don't know, I mean, just I would say take Kraken, take DI, try to consistently work around bad dome locations, and depending on the comp you're up against, you know, try to trick or, you know, play as well as you can. You know, if there's abilities that you're missing in combat, then that's definitely something that, because I know a lot of the abilities that I used to miss, and I still miss sometimes, but that I used to miss a lot, I didn't really care about hitting them. But now I care about hitting them. Now I'm like, okay, so I'm looking for an opening, I hit a couple of attacks, and I have these abilities queued up, and I'm not spamming them because I'm actually trying to use them to burst a hunter down. And then I use the abilities. Vortex, okay, he got hit by it, I know he's going in this direction, so I'm going to pull up Aftershock. There's a wall there, okay, so I don't have to go right on top of him because there's a wall there. And I just kind of sit and make sure the Aftershock hits, and then when it hits, I try to stay in the air and keep snowballs on him. And then after that's done, I now reassess my situation. Okay, there's probably like 20 seconds left in the dome or something. I have this much armor or no armor, and I'm now like, okay, so if it's a Kyra, by the time, you know, my abilities come back, am I going to be able to get really close to taking that hunter out? Is it worth the health investment to take the hunter out when there's that much time left in the dome? Yes, I think there's a good chance I can take him out, and if not, I think it's a good enough chance to go for it. Great, hit the Vortex, hit a mine, or throw a mine out, and then do Aftershock again. If he's close to being downed, then I think it's worth dropping to the ground. If Torvald, then no. I stay up in the air and snowball. And I use more time. Maybe the dome goes down, but the hunter's almost down. And then I take the hunter out and then leave. And now my target priority number 1 that I was attacking from the beginning is going to be much easier to take out later. And I'm going to actually have full armor probably at that point. So now I can go back on that person, and he's going to be easier to take out, and I'm going to have more time to do it. And then from there, that hunter, if I'm hitting my abilities, I can now try to go after somebody else when he's downed, or try to kill him outright, depending on how long it takes.
Most of the teams I've been screaming against right now are like full out damage comps where even me getting one person down, I've already lost armor and they're already taken away at health.
Yeah, so then if they're going like full damage comps, what do you mean by full damage comp? What is that?
It's usually Cabot plus Parnell or Cabot plus Torvald with an Abe or a Griffin.
Alright, so if they're running Cabot, then if you force them to dome in bad locations, well, not force them, if you try to trick them to dome in bad locations, you're now like way ahead in the game, and then you're going to take a lot of damage early on, and that's something I think a lot of monsters like have trouble with. But if you know you're going to take more damage early on, and then later, once you make it to stage 3, a Cabot comp just melts. Like they just get destroyed. They have to deal so much damage stage 1 and stage 2, and to make it hard for the monster to commit on them. But by stage 3, I have one in Mines, 2 Vortex, and 1 in Lightning Strike, and with that amount of damage, even with Kyra, it's really hard for them to keep up heals while they're trying to, because it's all about, like, when they have Cabot, you can take out Trapper. It doesn't matter if they have Kyra or whatever. If you're stage 2 with full armor, you should be able to take out a no strike Trapper. And like even if you get domed on the evolve, like you should try to be domed in an area where you can split the hunters up one way or another, and then try to trick the trapper into being in a bad position and then just bursting him down. Yes, taking punishment for that, but you get the strike. And then later, when you have full armor, then you go back, you can take out the trapper really quickly, much faster than before. And they can't get that much damage done. And now the trapper's on 2 strikes, and then you can kind of do the same thing and then delete the trapper and... Corey? Alright, alright. Alright, I'll be there in a minute, jeez. So, like, with Cabot, you're taking more damage, but with Kraken, you can now play around them having a really low trapper that's not going to deal as much damage to you, or you just go straight after the trapper and take him out really quickly and then get armor. And now they have to play around... That's because that's a lot like what happened in the Sunning game that we played. I tried to do kind of the same things as I would against like a Cabot, I guess. You know, you take out the trapper. Now, every engagement you have is kind of on your terms unless the time is really low, and you're forced to attack on them. But Kraken has his combat efficiency skyrockets when the hunters are still following him because they need to get damage done because they're a Cabot comp. But you can now catch them when you're going around a corner, like the Cabot and the Assault are running together, or the Cabot and whatever. Now they have 3 hunters. Their split is kind of wonky. If they split anyone at all, they have, you know, 1 person alone, or they run 3 together and you can keep running away, or maybe try to come around a corner, get a triple vortex or a double vortex into like Aftershock, and they don't have enough healing to keep up with that. And if you have full armor, you should be able to. It's not going to be worthwhile for them. I don't know, you're going to take more damage, but later on in the game, there's stuff that you can play around that makes it really difficult for them to... I don't know, it's a different game.
Yeah. I'll probably ask you more later when I can try out some more things.
Alright. So, yeah. That's... I talked a lot about things, and I feel like you have some ammunition now that you can think about and work on, I guess.
Yep.
Yeah. Alright. I'm gonna turn the... Wait. Yeah. I wanna turn the stream off and... I don't know. I'm gonna move up and see if I see what they need me for.
Alright.
Probably Hunter. Alright. Thanks for playing. You might be able to get Savvy if you exchange. Looks like he might play. And maybe Bad Puns.
Oh my god, out of the first 4 things I ate, I got 3 birds.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go to the bathroom and get food.
Congratulations.
I was just saying.
Well, okay, do you need me? If you don't need me, then I can...
We never needed you, Symphony.
Need you for what?
Well, it sounded like you guys might have needed 4 for Hunter, so Corey could play Monster.
What?
Alright, never mind then. I'll turn the stream off and go do some things.
Well, I mean, I'm not... I was just gonna fuck around with monster stuff today. I feel a little rusty, so...
I'll be back in...
You have your sandwich and a poo-poo, okay?
We were talking about stuff, man. You interrupted me.
It's
I
alright.
was on a pause.
Alright, so you can unpause
My conversation now. And leave.